You're listening to Were You Still Talking? Hey, welcome back. This is Joel Albrecht, and you are listening to Were You Still Talking, as the intro probably said. Today in my studio, okay, not my studio yet. Hopefully we'll get back to that someday, but on the Zoomio, I have Andrew Monroe. He's an independent writer with a semi-successful book, A Leaf and a Pebble, and a bucket of expert experience in the startup world. He helped run an internet service provider in the WISP industry, which I didn't know what was, but now I do because I looked it up. And he grew that to over $4 million a year in revenue before he decided to do something else. His book hasn't topped the charts yet, but it was only published at the very end of 2019, so it will soon. Apart from writing the next book, Andrew spends a fair amount of time as a marketing expert for his company, Axe & Bow. Also very interesting. He's also led an adventure-filled life, climbing dozens of buildings, peaks, and everything in between, earning multiple Spartan Race Trifectas, which is not an easy thing to do, and even placed in the top 20 at a Spartan Sprint in Dallas. He's been an avid fitness enthusiast. He's even experimented a little with biohacking. He has a background education in global affairs with a minor in Japanese. That probably didn't help with the Russian podcast he just did. And too much time playing tennis. Too much time playing tennis. Wow, how do you spend too much time doing tennis when you're doing all the other thing? Anyway, he was raised in the Texas Panhandle. He's from Amarillo, Texas. We were just starting to talk about that town. Andrew, how you doing? Really nice to see you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I love coming on, and you have probably the most professional setup I've seen yet. So this is going to be fun.
Thank you.
I'm good. It's pretty hot down here in Amarillo. I was driving back to my house and thinking about just how badly I want to get a summer home that is not in Texas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. You can't go to the grocery store without having to come home and shower. But,
yeah, I spent a summer in Arkansas when I was a wee lad, and I remember that.
Yeah. Arkansas actually can get hotter here, despite them not being as far south. They average like 100 and above. So sorry about your childhood.
Yeah, it was fun for a minute, and humid, really humid, so that you could not get dry, which I'm sure you are experienced. Like you take a shower and you're just wet.
This is my third shirt today. And it's
not
3 p.m.
Wow. Well, I'll just try and get the heat from your end because it's not warm here yet.
Well, y'all will get there. Also, thank you for that intro. I almost sound interesting. Not quite there yet, but we'll get there.
Everyone's interesting. That's what I'm finding out having a podcast. I had no idea I'd be talking to so many people, and everyone has just an amazing story. It's quite something.
Awesome. That is the way to look at it. There's a word for that. It's called, well, maybe not exactly for that, but have you heard the word sonder?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that is whenever you dig into it. I love that word. It's
about how interesting. Yeah. Hmm? You mean like Sonder down the road? No, that's not it.
Sonder, I think it's Sonder. Mm-hmm. If you're ever in New Mexico, there's actually a restaurant, I believe, called that in Santa Fe, which is this big art town and everything like that. George R. Martin lives there.
I haven't been to Amarillo, but I have been to Santa Fe, and I've been to Taos or Tejas or however people pronounce it, and I actually have some land outside of there that is probably just going to sit. But I love New Mexico.
If you've got land in New Mexico, you're a skip away from Amarillo. It's a 4-hour drive, which is as close as anything.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize. Wow.
Amarillo's closest metropolitan, I guess you'd call the Santa Fe's kind of tight in terms of its size, but it's a big city and how it feels. You've got Oklahoma City 4 hours one way and Santa Fe 4 hours the other way, and then Dallas 5.5 hours the other way. So that's as close as Amarillo gets to anybody that has a sizable population.
Santa Fe does feel like a big city, and
it does.
It's really not a big city.
It's not. They fake it really well.
They do. They do a really, really good job of that. It's like it must be the original gentrified city. It's very interesting.
Yeah, them in Marfa, Texas, they've got that same thing where you just have a bunch of people with some money came in and they're like, look, we're now artists everywhere.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel like things are happening.
It does. They have artists everywhere and surrounded by, the original Americans,
Hmm.
which is, it's pretty amazing place. I really like it there.
Cool little dichotomy going on.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask, is there armadillos in Amarillo?
Not as many as you would think with that, what would be a really cool way to say Amarillo armadillos.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I think I've seen 2 ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
more than I've seen,
it's
except
a
at the
cause
zoo.
for excitement.
Yeah.
The zoo has them?
I've seen them in zoos. I think I've seen one before, and I know it wasn't out in the desert. So, yeah.
I think our zoo has armadillos. We have a really small zoo though. I've seen a couple rolling by and they look pretty cool. We used to have a baseball team called the Dillas, which was the armadillos and then shortened into Dillas. I think it was baseball. It could have been hockey, honestly. I'm not even sure. It's been a while. But no, we don't have a lot of them. We have a lot of rattlesnakes and doves and pigeons. That's about the wildlife.
Oh, a lot of rattlesnakes. There's a lot of rattlesnakes in eastern Oregon. I still have only seen one rattlesnake in my life, which is bizarre because there's a lot of rattlesnakes in Oregon, and I lived in California for 11 years. There's a lot of rattlesnakes in California. The only one I ever saw was in Griffith Park in the middle of LA.
It was
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Populated.
What the heck?
Yeah.
It is populated, but it's like it's even more isolated than Central Park. It's a pretty big area. So there's a lot of wildlife but I didn't expect to see a rattlesnake there. I saw this, I like snakes. So I saw this big black snake slithering along and I got closer because it was huge and I noticed a big rattle on the back. All right, you go on ahead.
Yeah.
I'll hang back.
We'll pass on this one.
Yeah.
You don't want to get bit by those things.
That's what I hear.
It's a bad day. I've not been bit. I would be very unhappy. But I follow some guys that have shown me how imperceptive I might be when it comes to snakes. So they're in this area and I'm in the same boat. I've seen maybe 5 rattlesnakes my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very major experiences for me. But these guys will go out and they just take pictures of all these snakes. They run around looking for snakes. And every single time they post a picture and then they say there's a snake in there and I have no idea. You can't see it in the picture if you're just casually looking. And then they zoom in and sure enough, there's a rattlesnake. So from what they're saying, and the point of it is that you are actually seeing snakes all of the time, but they're just still and they're so well camouflaged that people like you and I just don't even see them. We walk within feet of them and they just hang out and they do their thing and we never even see them. So it's probably really made me scared.
That's funny. I used to live in LA, so we would go to Joshua Tree Park whenever we could. It's not very far. And tons of rattlesnakes. I mean, they have rattlesnake warnings everywhere. Never saw a rattlesnake there, but probably walked by dozens of them,
That's what's scary to think about it is
they just figured I was far enough away.
Leave that guy alone. We're good to go.
We're good. He's way over there. So you have your first book that just came out. I had the name right on the corner of my tongue.
Oh, you're good. It's a Leaf and Pebble.
A leaf, and it is a novel. It's not. It's not about marketing. It's not about being a mudder. It's actually a novel and a like fantasy world book, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I know that seems a little confusing with what looks like my background, but I actually started the book while I was still in school, in college specifically. So it's just what I read and it's what I actually like to do. The whole marketing and all of that kind of stuff, that came from life happening, I guess you could say. Those were things that were almost thrust upon me.
Okay.
And while that was happening, I was still writing. So the book just took a lot longer to get under my belt than some of the more pressing needs of, making bills happen and that kind of stuff.
Right. But and you have your own marketing company still.
That's right.
You're still doing that as you write more books.
Mm-hmm. Well, so right now I'm actually blessed with a lot of free time. Not free time necessarily, but a lot of freedom to pursue my own activities. So I left the internet agency. It was called Plains Internet. So I left that with an equity payout, which is how I am writing full time and was able to start up my own marketing company. I had equity, and therefore was able to translate that into taking larger risks than I would have been more comfortable with if I was just working on a salaried position.
Nice. Mm-hmm. That's always that's the advantage of being with a company earlier on. So I said in my intro that I was going to have you explain what a WISP is.
Actually, so I can do that.
Yeah. Tell people what that is, because that's interesting.
So a WISP is, it stands for Wireless Internet Service Provider. And it's actually a really cool concept on how to get your internet. And it's also really not well known, as you probably said. And up in, Oregon, you guys have a lot of trees and a lot of elevation changes that WISPs are not going to be nearly as prevalent as they are maybe in the South and, some of the more flat areas of the US and other parts of the world. I think one of the actually bigger providers is based out of Israel, strangely enough. But what you do is you take fiber or whatever your internet line is, however I'm trying to keep this as basic as I can, so excuse me.
No, appreciate
it. You take that source of internet and you take it in a wholesale sense. So if you go to whatever your local provider is and you get internet, they're not actually giving you a direct line to their, so to say, resources of internet. They're giving you a piece of something that they've already cut into a bunch of pieces, and they're giving you access to one of those pieces. So you can get a direct line from one of these big guys, or from, a third tier level that's not even that big guy that you might recognize, but who provides the big guy in your neighborhood with internet. Mm-hmm. You go to them and you say, hey, I want some of that wholesale internet. I want the big stuff. And so you pay whatever for this connection, a few $100s or a few $1,000s more than likely for a gig, 1 gig of internet. And
right.
Where most people get confused is they're like, hey, I have a gig from Google or Suddenlink or Warner Brothers, whoever's doing it. They're like, I pay $100 for my gig. Why are you paying $5,000 for a gig? And that's the piece thing. You're paying to get a piece of a gig that everybody else can get a piece of. And there's all kinds of weird stuff. So
right,
these WISPs get that piece of the gig and they pipe it up into a tower. And then they go out to underserved communities or just places that the monopoly's gotten so bad that, I have a friend that hit me up just a couple of days ago. He's got AT&T and he was like, hey, I need internet. I'm moving in with my parents for a few months. They have AT&T and they have 1 megabyte of internet.
Oh.
And I was, and this is central Amarillo. He's in, his parents have a $500,000 home. And they've got nothing for internet, and they don't care because they're retired and the whole thing. But
yeah,
a lot of people don't want that, and that's their only option. So places where monopoly or just underserved or whatever, a WISP will come in and they use different technology to shoot internet. It almost looks like a satellite dish, but it's horizontal instead of vertical. And they'll shoot it all over the place and give you a lot better internet for a lot cheaper than most of the big guys will provide you. Because it's generally a company that's going to be, less than 10 employees or, less than a couple $100,000 in revenue every month or year, excuse me. So the one I've left that I helped start up and we ran with, that was one of the bigger ones actually out there. But it helps that we're in Texas where there's nothing. You can do these wireless jumps all over the place. So in a nutshell, that's what a WISP is it's a startup company, or usually a small company is a better way to put it, that has some IT guys that circumvent the whole internet provider world and help you using some pretty fancy cutting edge technology to give you a better connection than you might get from a big box supplier.
Interesting.
Long answer for something that a lot of people probably won't care much about.
Well, you never know. It's surprising what people find interesting.
Well, my big
some people,
thing
some people when they're listening to this podcast, they're just trying to get to sleep.
Hey, I've got a good voice for that. And there's been many girls that have left me that could fall asleep listening to me talk.
I don't care why people listen. It's fun.
Yeah, viewers are viewers.
Exactly.
Get those subs.
Whatever works.
Yeah. No, I really do hope a lot of people, despite me having left, I can't gain anything more from the WISP or anything like that. It was nice working for a company that I was actually able to truly care about, because you'd have these people that were getting bent over a fence by these guys. You know, they want $200 a month for a meg of service. And we could come in and give it to them for $50 and 10 times their speed. And people need the internet. I've done a lot of talks on it, so I won't go too deep, but there's a lot of old people that live out on a ranch, or, you know, they're homebound, and the way they keep up with their grandkids, they keep up with their family, they get medicine, they get help, it's through the internet.
And right now it's how people are getting school.
Exactly.
It's going to look like, it looks like they're going to keep getting school that way in some places for a while. So it suddenly became, you know, far more important. We are really lucky where we are. We have a big evil company that has a ton of speed. Because
who are you with?
Comcast.
Okay, yeah, they're one of the big guys.
Yeah, they're. What I really hate about them is there's no choice. I mean, you can have Comcast, or I could get my internet through T-Mobile or something. You know, I could just get wire. Yeah, I could just get cellular data, which at this point would be enough because, again, we have, for some reason, they've outfitted this area with some really fast internet. And I gripe about Comcast all the time. But when I look at it now, the internet service has become really cheap because I get 400 megabytes for, you know, what I was paying for 50. You know, when I could only get 50, I was paying the same price as I'm paying now for 400. And they just basically, I think what's happening, this is total conjecture on my part. I think they're building it out for more people because they know this area is going to grow. And I think they keep building it out for more customers. And so for the time being, all those customers aren't hitting it. So it's still really fast.
Well, and they'll probably... You'll have two different things that will happen in that case. So they're doing two different preps. One, they're getting money. So there's a bunch of grants that have gone through the government pretty recently, like within the last few years, that if they provide service to some, you know, if you aren't within the direct metropolitan area, they will get money for giving you internet. So you're paying them, you know, let's say $50 a month. The government's also paying them $50 a month to give you that internet. And it's covering all the infrastructure costs for them as long as they do the build out. And so they'll hire the build out from somebody and the government pays for it. And then they get money to get your money. So it's why the big guys are screwy. And then
nobody but you saw that face.
It hurts. It hurts.
I mean, they've already been sued, but they keep up the practice. Both the phone company,
They pay $1 million fine and they're done.
Yep. Because they're also they're also charging us for taxes they don't pay. They're charging us for local city and local taxes that they then can have a deal with the cities and the states that they don't pay that because otherwise we won't be here. You know, whatever that deal is. But they were sued and they keep charging it. They didn't change what they charge.
They can pay the fine for, let's say it's $20 million. Awesome. They'll make that from your city in a month.
Yeah, exactly. From one city, and they're everywhere. And I mean, my biggest complaint about Comcast is there's no competition. I think I said that at the beginning, but enough about that junk. Let's talk more about you.
Sounds great. I can go on about internet all day. It's pervasive.
It's interesting. Yeah, and it is you know, it's a really interesting subject because most people, I think, don't know about it. And
you pay your bill like it's electric.
Pay your bill and you don't really think about it, and there's an awful lot to it. I mean, at least we're not being spied on over the internet or anything like that. So, you know, that's good. And then the
Patriot Act was only like 15 years ago. Surely they gave up on that by now.
You know that, yeah. Come on. I mean, they sent that guy to Russia, so we don't need to talk about that anymore.
No, there's at least 4 guys on this podcast.
That's it. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing, but this is public, so I'm not supposed to care. I'm not supposed to care. Oh, but I did want to ask, before we got off that subject, is what Tesla's trying to do kind of similar to a giant WISP? He's trying to do satellite internet?
Sort of. And so I love Elon Musk, and I know that's somewhat controversial for some people. So sorry.
Oh, no, that's what sells podcasts. Oh, right. Yeah, like nobody pays for the podcast.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Damn it.
He's doing something a little bit of a mix, and it's really cool. If he pulls it off, it's really cool. And I think he will because the guy's a madman. And that's why I like him, is he's not a nice person, I don't think, but he has some drive that I wish I had. So you have satellite internet, which I'm sure you actually have access to out at your place. But it's terrible internet and it's overpriced. But what he's doing is satellite internet, but he's doing it low orbit. And that's really hard to do because, and to really understand it, it gets really technical, so I won't get into that. But the solutions to make internet good from satellite are really hard to make happen. And to do that, he's sending up multiple satellites. I don't know if you've seen the stars, like the Starlink train.
We had
seen pictures of it.
We saw it here in Eugene.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we had a UFO sighting. There was thousands of reports of this UFO, and the paper had pictures of it, and within a few hours they were like, "Oh, that was Elon Musk."
It's funny he didn't tell anyone, because I saw the same thing. Everybody's like UFOs, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, that's me. They're now active." Oh, okay, cool. Well,
I can see why he wants to keep his secrets about something like that. It's a pretty big project.
Yeah, it's really cool though. So instead of doing one, he's doing multiples, and that changes the technology where the internet's actually viable to use for anything, beyond emails. So first, it's a lot lower than other satellites, and then it's using a whole bunch of different satellites to give you better internet without going into the hardcore stuff about it. But essentially, latency is the biggest problem where, you and I are talking over internet. If you have really bad latency, that's where you get that really bad chop. And if you're watching a video, it buffers really hard, and sometimes it just drops out entirely. That's the big problem with satellite. And he's fixing that problem by essentially getting some really smart people and throwing ridiculous amounts of money at them, and then spending a ridiculous more amounts of money to get things up in space. So short term, he's going to be in what a normal company could not handle in terms of the red. But he is able to use whatever the hell charisma he's got that allows him to be a 20-year payoff.
Right.
So
he doesn't care about being in the red. I mean, his car company, I don't know if it made profit one year. I don't know if that's still true.
I think they made profit one quarter, I think.
Oh, one quarter.
I think there was a quarter that they broke even.
Right. But his stock just keeps shooting up.
Yeah, they're at like $1,400 a share right now.
It's absolutely nuts. And wow. But that's the world.
Something I want to roll by you, since we were talking about the government stuff. Have you watched Hamilton recently with Disney Plus?
I feel so fortunate that I did not. I spent a long time, I guess it's 4 years, watching as little about Hamilton as possible, because I wanted to see it one day.
Okay.
I really want. I want to see this play.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I figured it would come. Broadway shows come through here because we have a nice theater. So generally the traveling show comes through, or it comes to Portland, which is not that far. So I'm like, I really would like to see the whole production. So yes, I watched that the 3rd. I guess it was July 3rd. Yeah. And to do it, because Disney Plus cannot show, it won't come up. I don't have a device to show it on my television. So I had my computer and my and a dock on the computer plugged into a HDMI port. Sure. It looked pretty silly, but wow. Yes. Anyway, so I saw it, blown
ready
away.
For a revolution after watching it myself.
Yeah, just really blown away. And I see of course, immediately people come out with all the criticizing it, and that's not how it really happened, and what's he know, and that's only white people. One of the big things I saw, only white people watch that show. I
haven't seen any of that.
You're really? I've seen a bit of it, and it's just nuts. I mean, to me, that is one of the best pieces of art I've seen in a long time. It's for me, it's like watching football. When I watch football, it's like I could never do that, and will never be able to do that. But I appreciate, those athletes that can. It was the same with this. It's like the talent to, first of all, to write it, but then all that talent on that stage performing it is just mind-boggling. And the musicians, unfortunately, don't even get any credit.
No, they don't. At the very end, they're like, "Oh, by the way, those guys down there,
down here. Yeah. Look,
did you see the guys we hired?"
Exactly.
They did some work too. Say thanks. All right, bye.
Yeah, it's always the case. But yeah, loved it.
As a writer, I was talking about that today with my cousin. Actually, we were both talking about Hamilton. I was like, "How does someone write something like that and then perform it as well?" I just don't even understand that level of art.
I don't either. And now that I've seen it, I mean, like I say, I resisted watching a lot of interviews. So now I really want to see him describe how he wrote it. And because I think he wrote it pretty quick. I mean, that's what I've heard, is that he wrote it pretty fast. So I'm very curious how much how many times he rewrote it, and how like if there were other people involved.
How much cocaine he was on.
Yeah, maybe that too.
Yeah.
Something.
I can't imagine he slept.
And some people just don't seem to sleep. I don't think Elon Musk sleeps.
No.
Some people don't seem to need sleep. And also some people, I mean, and you're one of these people, some people are just on all the time. I mean, you do a lot of extreme sports and like crazy activities. What are they called? I read it in
the obstacle course races.
Yes. Yeah, those are extreme. And then you also are climbing buildings and rocks and things like that, trying to fall off of things.
That's fun. I sleep so much, though. I see people like Lin-Manuel Miranda and Elon Musk. I'm like, how do I get on that level? And it honestly eats me up. Like, I don't want this to be a sad podcast, but it it causes me no shortage of bad feelings towards myself, because 10 o'clock rolls around, or 9:30, and I'm in bed, and it is tough for me to get up before 7:30. I want like 9 to 10 hours of sleep, and these guys are functioning on 2 hours. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I honestly think, and this is from a amateur podcaster's point of view, that there's something different about their brain. I'm having someone on in a couple of days who is on the autism spectrum, and I'm going to ask her about this. I think that it's just like Da Vinci, like even Benjamin Franklin, Hamilton. I think there's something that's not the same as most of us. I think the same thing about professional athletes, because professional athletes, it takes an incredible amount of physical skill to even get there at all. But it also takes an amazing amount of drive. The skill's not going to do it. You've got to have that. It's like the people who become bodybuilders. They are physical freaks, but also they're mental freaks, because to take that much steroids, first of all, and be okay with it and not react to it, there's something different about them physically, that they're able to do that. And then you can't get that big or that fast or whatever without an incredible amount of work, an amazing amount of work. And, but I did want to say that sleeping is really important. More and more sleep studies are coming out every year saying Americans are in big trouble. You got to sleep. So it's good that you sleep.
Most of us need it.
Most of us need it. Yeah, the average person, it's a really good thing. And it's only going to help recover from when you're doing mudders and climbing mountains and things like that. It's why you're able to do it again.
There's a book that goes with that spectrum theory that actually kind of supports that. It's Homo Deus, if you've read it or heard of it. It's a dense book. It took me a while to get through, because I had to pause and be like, all right, I need to think about this. I need to look up some words, the whole thing. And that's what he talks about, though, is that being on that spectrum was actually an evolutionary benefit, because you could dig into some kind of subject or survival skill or hunter-gatherer, or building electric cars, or a social media platform. And he pointed out a lot of different people. He's like, look at these people, they're on the spectrum. You can't make that kind of mental leap following that kind of discipline without having something abnormal, or in his case, he was like, it's actually a benefit. Like it's a post-human almost skill to follow through with a task like that, because people like you and I, doesn't matter how much coffee you have, we get bored and we grind down to a halt without entertainment and other pursuits and that kind of stuff. I know I cannot go to the gym for 9 hours, even if I had all the steroids and everything in the world. I want to do other things. I want to go see the movies. I want to play video games. I want to read books. Like, you got to have something different with your brain to be able to punch into something that long and that hard.
Yeah, that's very true. That's one of the things that always amazes me. And I could totally see where, because Elon Musk has no social skills.
Right.
So it really makes sense that, his brain works differently than other people's brains. And it sounds like it's on all the time. It's the same with Bill Gates. I've seen interviews where his wife comes in and says, yeah, he never turns off. He's supposedly retired now, and he's still working just as hard. He's still trying to do as much. It's
such a good example of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you watch that Netflix special about Bill Gates?
Oh, I've watched some of it. It's like 10 episodes, isn't it? Is that what you're talking about?
It.
Okay, I've watched a couple of them, and I have real problems with Bill Gates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're in the wrong area to be having problems with Bill Gates.
Well, I'm not the only one. I mean,
I hear he employs a lot of people up there.
He did. Well, that's way up there. That's way north of here. Yeah, he does it. And it's not him anymore.
Oh, that's fair. He's in his fundraisers and nonprofits.
From everything I know about him, and all the 2 movies that came out about him, he got where he was by doing really mean things. And,
he was not nice.
He was not a nice guy. It's kind of like Dale Carnegie. I mean, Dale Carnegie just stepped over the world to become one of the richest people in the world at that time, and then started giving all his money away when he retired. And Bill Gates seems very much the same. I think it's great that he's giving all his money away and become a philanthropist, and he's got billions of dollars to give away. It's just that how he got the amount of companies he destroyed to get there. I mean, he literally would destroy small computer companies just because, that might cut into 1% of his sales. Yeah. So he would just bury them. And
it's
so
terrifying that you can do that.
That's what I think is not cool.
No.
It's like, it's like Amazon, but I would be, it's the same with Apple, but I like Apple products better.
Yeah. So any of those big guys, there's no way they got there without hurting a lot of smaller guys. Yeah. And they still do.
Yeah. And they still do.
Yeah. If you come even close, they have so much money, they'll just tie you up.
Yeah.
If they don't want to buy you out, it's like, oh, we could buy them for $1 million. We could just ruin them for 500,000 though. So bottom dollar.
Yeah. That's what's sad is that, if a small company has a really good idea, then it's going to go 2 ways. Either you're going to say, someone's going to come along and buy you, whether it's Google or Apple or Microsoft, or they're going to come along and say, you're stepping on our patent. No, we're not. Oh, yes, you are. Try and prove you're not.
Just under the radar long enough to get really successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Before they can get you.
Or you have to just let your idea go when they come along, I guess. Luckily, I don't have any good ideas like that. So
good thing for us. We're such, uninspired people.
Well, you are pretty inspired. You do quite a bit of stuff. You wrote a book, for instance. What motivated you to write the book?
I read a lot.
Yeah.
I was that kid that everybody hated in school because he always had his nose on a book and knew all the answers from the English class. But at some point, I just wanted to tell my own stories and wanted to take a crack at it. So I spent 8 years trying to write a book. And it was a really fun process. There was a lot of painful parts, but once I actually finished, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I want to keep going because it's like its own little drug finishing a book. I think I heard a quote from somebody that writing wasn't fun and editing wasn't fun, but having a finished book is where the fun's at. So you do all the other stuff because suddenly you get that, endorphin rush from having done something like that.
Oh yeah. That's really interesting. Absolutely. Yeah, I could see that. It's kind of like rehearsing a play is not fun either, but being in a play is awesome.
Yeah. And telling everybody you run the play or getting the afterwards, they're like, you did such a good job. You're like, yes, I did. And you're humbly like, no, it was a team effort, but deep down you're like, yeah, that was me.
I did that. Yeah. Yep. So 8 years writing a book, that takes some commitment. Did you have like a time you put aside every day? Did you write 1,000 words a day? Did you like go in the desert and do peyote, or what was your what was your writing? How did you get that done?
I wish I was more like the people we were just talking about, because I am as far off from that spectrum as you can get in terms of discipline. So it would swing in waves. I would work semi hard for a few months and then I would just drop off. It would disappear and I would make up other stuff to write about. I'd come up with a new thing to write or some other creative outlet that excused me not working on the book itself. In general, if I was being good, I guess you could say, I would work at lunch. I would do before morning. I'm sorry, let me try that again. I would do before work started in the morning. I'd usually have a coffee and, go to the coffee shop at 7 a.m. and get what I hoped would be an hour of writing, but usually it'd end up being 20 or 30 minutes by the time I actually got to it. And then I would usually take lunch as well. And I'd have a packed lunch and I would go down into a basement at this place I was working, or depending on the job, I'd disappear wherever I could at lunch and write. And it would go on and off for a few years. And then, a few months I would be on really well and I'd get 500 to 1,000 words a day for 30 days. And then I would disappear on the writing project for 2 months. And then when I worked with the internet company, it was a lot more time consuming. And I didn't touch it for almost a year straight at first because we were so busy. From there, I started getting a little bit more flexible with my time and creating more time. And I would work on it again in the mornings or in the evenings whenever I got off and just try and set immediately before or after work where I would go to the coffee shop or something that was able to, kind of trigger that habit and sit down and get 500 words down. So it was just kind of an on and off habit at 500 words every hour or so, once a day, every other day.
That's pretty amazing to do that for 8 years. I saw in your resume that you like coffee, so I'm having a coffee
hey, there you go.
In your honor. I'm a big fan of coffee myself. Yeah.
You guys have some great coffee in the Northwest.
We do. It's true. Well, we get it from Guatemala and
everybody
stuff like that.
South America.
Yeah, there's some amazing roasters. The stuff we drink is local Eugene roaster, so
that's cool.
It's nice that you have so many roasters. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh, keeping it up for 8 years is an incredible discipline. I think that's really commendable. I've been in movies that took more than 8 years to make, small, no budget movies, and I'm just amazed at the producers that kept grinding at it for that long. I think it's really hard to do.
Well, thanks.
I'm always amazed by that. And you're working on more books? You've got more coming up? So are you doing a sequel to
I'm working on
Leaf
a
and
sequel
Pebble,
right now.
Uh-huh. Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you off there. I'm working on a sequel to Leaf and Pebble. So I kind of already was working on it whenever I published the first book. I'd gone too far in the writing process and realized that I had too many words for a book. So I just started a sequel. And, that's all fantasy. We all have to have sequels because what else do we do with our lives?
Just like George Lucas.
He's he's on that spectrum. He's doing his own thing.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm working on that. And then I actually have a friend who helped edit my book, and for whatever reason he didn't have the same response that you had. He was like, "Oh, this looks easy. I want to do one." So we're writing a book together, and it's more on the startup side that we talked about and the marketing, everything. And it's less about marketing and startup. It's more about working within a business and moving up in a business and how to balance your social life and your career life and all the different things we've seen is, managing people and all the stuff that you miss whenever you're coming into a company. Because I'm 29. The first few years of my career, I was just like, this sucks. I'm doing whatever. These guys are out to get me. And, I did what everybody does. So whenever I down the road was, helping run this company, I was like, oh, I get it now. I see it. And I saw it with those guys that were coming in. I was like, oh, they're just like I was. And that is so frustrating as somebody that's trying to get them to work with you. And so I have a friend that was doing the same thing. And we just started writing a book that was started off as a business development and turned into this kind of personal experience of ours working and living and how to do life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So there's two at once. So we'll see which one actually does well.
That's nice, though. It's good to put out more material.
Yeah.
Put out more stuff. Fun. Yeah. You tend to do better.
Well, and it gives me that moment when I'm procrastinating writing one thing. I can, instead of just not writing, I can swap gears and write the other thing, and then I get bored and I can go back. So
that seems like,
that.
that seems like a really good way to do it. The switch back, because I can see where a certain project would start to slow down, and then you have another one to work on. I
don't have that dedication we talked about. I got to switch gears, and I've got to keep myself entertained, and otherwise, I don't know. I'm at the coffee shop too much, and I haven't gotten anything done.
Well, it seems like you get a lot done. It seems like you get an awful lot done. Your company, the Axe and Bow. I wanted to ask you some. It's a lot about internet marketing and social media marketing and stuff like that.
That's correct.
Because that's something I struggle with all the time.
I'm here to help. What do you want to know?
Well, actually, one thing is, I did have a question about that. You talk about helping people with organic marketing and organic growth. And I understand very little, but it seems like organic growth is a far better way to grow an internet presence than just buying it. So what's the difference there? And is it better? Is organic growth better than just purchased growth? Because I see a lot of both. Yeah.
So kind of the difference. So what we're talking about when we're talking about organic marketing, especially digitally, is you are bringing people to your, let's say your Facebook page. We can use that, or your podcast. So you want to bring those people in to actually want to listen to the podcast, actually want to give you that like and engage with you and be a part of whatever you're offering, be it, the podcast, or, something that you are down the road hoping to leverage the podcast into, like a book or a cool series of interesting, biographies about people, or how to run a podcast, whatever thing you want to sell, or how to start your own podcast. Just something that is valuable that you can actually make money off of, if it's not the podcast in particular. But anyways, you want those people to actually be involved with you, because that's how you grow for free. So once you get a certain organic growth, it continues. It's like a plant growing, or a tree growing would be a better way to look at it. You actually have something that, without you doing much but watering it, which would be, creating your episodes or any kind of content you have, or just engaging with them. That's watering that tree, and the tree is going to grow, and you aren't actually spending money. If you do paid growth, you can get some people interested by spending those ad dollars and doing your thing. But if you're buying likes, or you're buying views on your podcast, you spend $20. You have to spend $20 again to get those people. And at some point, there's, especially early on, you're not getting anything for it. You're spending $20, and you might feel good because your viewers went up, or your subscribers went up, or whatever it is. But until you hit that certain point, you're not actually going to be able to gain anything. And down the road, you can't leverage that audience you have into an actual viable audience that gives you money back for whatever value you're providing. So that's why organic is really important, is you want to grow for free down the road. And you also want to have somebody that can actually give you shade back, if we're using the tree analogy and too far of a way. If you just pay for it, you're putting up 2x4s, and you're building a tree out of 2x4s, and every bit you do, you have to buy a new 2x4. You put it up, and now you just have a big pillar of 2x4s. It doesn't do you anything. And that was probably one of the weirdest analogies I've done. So there's that.
I think that's a really good analogy, though, because and I've come to that conclusion in my own mind, and from listening to other people talk about media growth and stuff, because I've spent a smidgen of money to promote, just to see what would happen. And at my level especially, but even at a medium level far above mine, you're spending an amazing amount of money to get one person to listen to your podcast or look at your page or whatever. You're spending a ridiculous amount, because anything more than a penny is a lot. And so, and then it's not, like you say, it's not really coming back. You're not building a relationship with them. And I've seen like Twitter accounts, for instance, that have a lot of followers, and the Twitter account has thousands of followers, but then they tweet something and they get no reaction. So that's kind of that's a little bit of a hint to me that I don't think this was organic.
No, that's a great way to look at it. And that's exactly the problem. If you are buying those followers, or, Instagram and Twitter, those are good platforms for you to, let's say, sell something on to an audience you have. If in my case, I want to sell a book. If I'm trying to sell a book and I have a bunch of followers, I can be like, hey, here's this book in one of my posts, and hopefully 10% of them that see that post, which we don't even get into the algorithms, but if I've got 1,000 followers and I post that and I'm hoping for 10% buy of who saw it, you're talking about maybe one person might buy my book because maybe 100 people saw the post and one of those people will buy it. And if you buy 10,000 likes or followers and you're trying to sell something at that point, you're not able to leverage anything. So where the paid growth does help is maybe not buying the followers or anything, but buying people's eyes where you run an ad or something like that. Once you have a product that you're actually trying to push, then it's worthwhile because you're looking for that direct conversion. But whenever you're starting off with, something that's free content or, something that you haven't actually tried to sell yet, you've just got to go organically because it gets you a lot further for a lot cheaper. And it's a lot more genuine, and people can tell, you can tell whenever there's a Twitter account that's not real, and it sours you towards whatever they're doing. And you're like, I don't want this. Like, this person cares more about those numbers than about actually giving me what they're promising. And most of the consumers are smart nowadays. A lot of people, and it doesn't matter the age range. I mean, if you're talking less than 75, a lot of these people are savvy. They know what things look like, and they know what the digital age, like there's not that divide anymore between really young people being really good at, Facebook or Instagram. Everybody knows what it's supposed to look like. My grandparents, maybe not, but most everybody that's actually spending money on these platforms, they get it. They know a fake account. They know a spam or a scam or whatever other bad option is out there that wants their money. They're only going to engage with the brands they trust or the people they trust if it's a smaller brand.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. I mean, a ton of sense. I can see where spending money makes sense if you are a huge brand. If you're a major brand and you can buy and you can pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a funny 15-second video, it's going to pay off. But if you're a small brand or a beginning, you're starting out, it's probably not going to pay off because no one will know who you are. So it's not the same thing. They can't identify. No one can identify yet.
The only thing that's really worth spending money on, especially when you're on a smaller side, is awareness. If you can not necessarily try and convert them into spending money with you, but like finding the people who are interested in a specific type of podcast. And you're not even going to be looking for them to like your page or anything. You want to get their info. You want to still offer them something, usually for free. And you say, hey, I have a podcast, but if you aren't about that right now or whatever it is, here is X, Y, and Z. And if you can get them to at least engage with you a little bit, that's worth some money, because then as you're growing, you can keep reminding them that they're there until they do come to your side. And I mean, that is pretty low priority if you are doing content creation.
Right. And I've talked to some extremely successful people in the podcast world. Podcasts are different than anything. So until they've grown, a fair amount, they pretty much grow organically. Like organic growth is pretty much it. And unless they start out big, like a lot of NPR podcasts are pushed by NPR. So they start out big. I mean, they do a complete media blitz from the get-go. And I've said this a few times on my podcast. So if you want to hear more, go back and listen. It's called "Were You Still Talking?" But I did want to mention, let me do my little podcast bit now, because we were talking at the beginning of the podcast. I was thanking Andrew for showing up with a microphone. So I just wanted to give a little shout out there to anyone who's thinking of doing a podcast, anyone who is using Zoom, especially if you're a major news anchor. Hello, unbelievable. Get a microphone. They're cheap. I think I said this on my last show, But you will be able to hear this if you're not watching the video, which probably most people aren't. You'll be able to hear the difference in quality of the voice on this episode because he has what kind of mic's that?
I'm using a Blue Yeti Nano. So speaking of cheap, I think it's on sale on Amazon for $80 a lot of the time.
That's what I thought. They're like $100, and it sounds to me, it sounds fantastic. It probably sounds everybody as good as my mic. So I'll have to, I'll de-EQ it. I'll take all the lows out and all the highs. It'll sound, no, I'm kidding.
Well, no, but I mean, really, if you have a mic and you mix it, from what I understand, you won't get as quite of a range and as quite of quality. But for most of us listening while we're driving, or, I don't listen just sitting in my room with high quality headphones. I'm either at the gym or I'm on the road. I'm not going to tell the difference between $1,000 mic and a $500 mic or a $100 mic. I can tell the difference when they record in a bar or they record on their cell phone or their computer. Then it sounds like crap. But
yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, if my experiment works and you send me the audio file, the difference is too that with a quality mic like that, there's really good audio to work with. So it will sound great. So if I add EQ or add compression, it'll make a difference. Where if I'm just trying to use the audio from Zoom, someone's mic on their computer, unless they have a brand new Mac Pro 16, which was rumored to have a nice mic. But most computers, their mics are just, it's not something they're thinking about yet. Now that podcasting is getting so huge, it'll probably be a bigger thing with phones and computers. But yeah, it makes a huge difference when I can mix the audio. If it's done through any kind of mic, I mean, I can tell that mic sounds just fine, and it's a third of the cost of this mic.
With COVID, what are any of you people doing without a mic? Like,
exactly.
Don't
That's
make your coworkers listen to you.
Exactly. Especially if you're a high muckety muck. If you're you're someone who's kind of having important meetings on your Zoom. I mean, my wife the meetings aren't that important. They're pretty personal work meetings. But if you're going to a board meeting. You might want to think about getting a mic. No one has to see it. It can be completely out of your frame, and everyone will just think you have an amazing voice, and they'll listen to you.
Well, even let's say you're working entry level somewhere, and you're the guy in the meeting that actually sounds good. It doesn't matter what you say. People are like, oh, that guy, he knows what's up, or she knows what's up. That they sound good, and they don't sound fuzzy. And human psychology is so dumb. They will immediately think you're smart and know what you're doing if you sound higher quality than everybody else in the Zoom meeting.
I think that's totally true. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If someone pops in, yes, this is Bob. And what I think is that those gadgets should go out nationally tomorrow. Oh, my God, listen to Bob.
Absolutely. I would guarantee that is how it will go. I
really believe you. I think that's true.
It is sad how easy, it's a halo effect. You're tall. You get it. This is the new COVID halo. If you sound good on the mic, and you have good lighting, which, excuse my lighting on this video, but sound good on a mic, have good lighting, you are going to be taken more seriously, and what you say will be taken as better than most of your, coworkers or bosses because of the halo effect with your mic.
That totally makes sense to me. I think it's true. I don't know if I can experiment with that thought, but hopefully that's true. Yeah. And the idea of lighting too, you see so much terrible lighting on videos.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at my video.
It's like, oh my God.
I'm embarrassed with, I'm sitting on the floor. I've got bad angle. I've got bad light.
But congratulations, you have a new house.
Yeah, there is that. But I'm also a walking example of what you don't want to do on a Zoom video.
So don't do what Andrew does. Yeah. Go out, spend $20 and get a professional light. $20. $20,
that's the thing.
folks.
I have a ring
$20.
light.
See that?
They're nothing. Now I've got one of the lights. I've got a setup that holds my phone. The whole thing. It's just they're in storage right now, and it was cheap. It was cheaper than I think for the mic and a light and everything. I'm talking like $150 tops.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you can spend $5,000 in a minute, but you sure don't need to.
Just with lighting, you can get crazy.
Yeah, you can get crazy. Well, I was watching sometimes I watch the top YouTubers just to see what they're doing and to see how they got there, and which is a nutty thing to do if you're a YouTuber. Don't try and compare yourself. But this guy's all about making videos now. He kind of switched his platform to a lot of his videos are about making them. And here's what I do. And so he's like, here's my setup. And I'm thinking, oh, cool. What are you using to set up? His light's $5,000.
Who is it?
His light. Now I'm forgetting his name. It's an M. Oh, geez.
Is it that black guy?
Spakey. No. He's a skinny Caucasian man with lots of tattoos, lots of energy. His videos are all like this. It's all he's usually, but he does some incredible stuff. He's about any cut. Everything's a cut. Well, that didn't tell you anything. That's everyone now. That's everybody.
It's funny watching old movies.
McKinnon or McTiernan. I think it's been too long. I'm looking through my phone to see if there's any. Yeah, my history's not even showing it today. It's been too long since I looked at one of his videos. But anyway, doesn't matter. He has enough viewers.
Yeah.
He has millions of followers, and I do appreciate people like him because he started out very small, literally started out with an iPhone. Mm-hmm. And he really worked hard growing his channel. And one of the things he did as it started to grow was he just put money back into it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really smart move with, any kind of enterprise like that.
Well, and then once you hit that point, what is a $5,000 light? What's 4 of them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Where he's at now, he's probably making in the millions, at least yearly. So a $5,000 mic is nothing.
That's the guy I was thinking of. He's exactly like that. He does technology and video equipment reviews. Same exact thing. He's like, oh, hey, here is my setup today. And it's like, oh, there's a $10,000 camera, $5,000 light, $10,000 light. And he's like, hey, I'm going to see what these two $5,000 light differences are. And oh, look, this one's a little better.
Yeah, I think I've seen that guy too. I think exactly. I've been sucked into his videos and they're
charismatic and they're so well done because they have such expensive gear. You're like, it's like watching a movie.
Exactly. It's like how to make your video look amazing. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? Oh, come on, man. I could easily make a movie with what you're sitting in front of. Like easily. That could make quite you can make a feature film with that stuff. And you're using it to do what we're doing, sit in front of a camera and
the
talk.
Price ranges are wild. Entry's nothing. And then the maximum, I don't know if there's a maximum.
There's no maximum. Well, there really isn't because you could go to I don't see anyone doing this yet on YouTube, but you can go to movie level cameras, which start at about $20,000 for the body alone, and then starting adding lenses and so there's no top. There's no top. What's great is where we started with all this BS is the entry level is extremely affordable and works good. You don't.
It's
need
great.
much.
It really is great for the price points, and if you're not trying to make a feature film or make millions on YouTube, you're fine.
Exactly. And unfortunately, a lot of people are realizing that these headphones, which are professional studio headphones, I've used the same headphones for years and years. Mm-hmm. These are Sennheisers. No, they're not. Yeah, Sennheiser 280 Pros. And I wear them because I want to look like a podcaster, and because I want to hear what I'm saying. Yeah. But you can't get them right now because so many people are starting up there, are doing stuff like this.
See, I don't have studio headphones.
They're sold out, and you don't need them.
No, mine are some Bluetooth headphones that were $50, and they have an aux cord to plug into my mic, and I hear myself fine, and it's great.
Exactly. They work absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. I have studio headphones because I play drums and record drums, so I want to.
And you have a podcast,
and I have a podcast, but so do you. We haven't even talked about your podcast. Are you still doing the podcast?
Yeah, I am. Mine is. I think I'm on episode 9. We've, put together, but that's the thing. I'm just doing it with a friend, and we aren't really interviewing people or anything like that. So it's really just us. I'm sorry. My sister sent me this just a couple weeks ago, and it was a meme, and it said that podcasts nowadays for most of these guys are just an excuse to have an intimate conversation with your friend because boys are emotionally locked off. And I was like, yeah, that's that's what we're doing. We write some stuff, and then we essentially have a phone call and record it, and we got our 2 Blue Yetis and our laptops, and drop it in a garage band, and now we have a podcast.
I think that's how the biggest podcast in the world started out. I really do. It was, it was just him and his buddy going live to YouTube. It's now literally the biggest thing on YouTube. Not on YouTube, but biggest podcast. It's not even close to the biggest thing on YouTube. Oh my gosh. No, those kids.
No, that's that kid opening the Nerf guns.
Yeah.
Jerk.
Exactly.
I want to do that.
Yeah. It's little kids doing things like that are the top thing on there. But what's the name? I really like the name of your podcast. What's the name?
Dead by Tomorrow.
Yeah, Dead by Tomorrow. I like that. And what's the concept? What's the name come from?
So that's actually the second. So it all ties together, that it's the same friend who helped edit the book, and his name's Daniel. And we started writing a book together, and we kind of got our first draft finished, and we enjoyed it. But honestly, it went back to some of the issues I ran into publishing my first book, and me wanting to do some things more efficiently on the marketing front, and just getting it right the second time, at least on that separate avenue, on the non-fantasy avenue of books. And so we wrote this book as I was like, hey, we should make a podcast about this. We're having these conversations about what we wrote and fixing the writing and everything like that. So let's swap over. There's this book called Content Inc., which is really good, and it's kind of the concept we're going for. And essentially you build a big content cycle. So we've got the book in the process. We're still working on it, fixing it up, editing it, that kind of thing. And that will be what I was talking about, like the value proposition where we try and sell it. So down the road on the podcast, we'll be like, hey, we have a book. If you like what we're talking about, please buy our $5, coffee cup priced book. And if we have enough followers, hopefully that turns into maybe not a lot of money, but at least a semi-passive income. And in the meantime, we get to hang out, talk, do our podcast and that kind of thing, learn some new skills. And we do the podcast. And so that's what the podcast is it's Dead by Tomorrow is the book. And the whole concept of the book and the podcast is, what would you do today if today was your last day? And it's kind of the opposite, or the other side of the YOLO coin that all the kids are about, which I probably shouldn't say that because I have plenty of friends that are about the YOLO coin. But that you only live once, let's go drink really hard tonight. And that whatever, it's you only live once.
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard that expression, the yellow coin. Okay. Yeah. I was that way as a kid as well, well into my 30s.
I've got people that are, coworkers or, whoever in my age group. And that's what they do Friday night or Wednesday night. Wednesday through Saturday is drink night, and it's get blackout drunk, which, I just had a glass of wine earlier, but it's not a good way to spend your life if you are just, you're out drinking, you're out chasing, girls or boys, or watching Netflix for 9 hours a night. That kind of thing doesn't progress you. So Dead by Tomorrow is kind of the YOLO concept, but with a legacy focus almost, or a how to use today to move yourself, that one step further and, get things done. Go on those obstacle course races, write that book, start the podcast, do all the different things that you've been putting off till tomorrow because you're like, well, that's a little more difficult. I don't want to mess with that right now when I can go get margaritas with the cute girl next door. I'm going to do that tonight, and tomorrow I'll start. And as we all know, because I've done this too, it's not like I'm perfect in any way. Tomorrow happens all the time. I'm like, not today. Tomorrow I'm going to do the hard work. Today's fun. And you keep pushing off. As soon as it's a habit, you're 3 years deep. So that's the whole concept, is just doing what you should do today and not putting it off till tomorrow.
I really like that concept. I mean, it actually goes towards, it sounds similar to what I hear people say when they nearly die. Mm-hmm. Or when they do die and then they're brought back or something like that. And then suddenly
they have those huge life changes. I'm changing how I do things because I almost died and I want to get something done now.
Right. I don't want to waste any more of my life. I'm going to, I'm going to start doing something important right across the country or something. But
your podcast is a great example. It takes work, right? You have to go find your guests. You've got to mix. You've got to set up. You got to set the time aside. And, this is not something that's easy for you. And I'm sure starting it was a big step forward.
It was, it's funny. Starting it was easy because when I started it, I literally heard on a podcast that, anyone can do this. And so I was silly enough to go, well, hey, I got equipment. I'm gonna do this. And I got on the phone with, first I just blabbed. I think my first podcast is just me. So, these podcasts are not a story. No reason to listen to all of them.
You don't have to go to the beginning.
You don't have to start at the beginning. But I just started blabbing to myself, and I thought, well, that's pretty boring. But of course, being having an ego, I wanted to put it out there. And then I did one with a buddy of mine where just him and I talked, because we talk on the phone all the time. So I talked with him on the phone. And I was like, well, that's really fun. What if I actually, had some people in and interviewed them? And I started out in my studio here, and really fun, very much like another big podcast where I don't worry about, which is not the best move if you're going to start a podcast. Like your podcast has a theme. That's a really good idea, especially as you know, from a marketing point. Mine is kind of all over the map, but I did zoom in on the idea of talking to people who are inspiring, talking to people who are doing stuff with their lives. The idea of your podcast is kind of the kind of thing I'm trying to put out there. I don't talk politics because that is right now not a very inspiring subject, and because
it doesn't matter which way.
It doesn't matter which way you're going.
It's just sad,
and it's all about pissing off the other side. I mean, if I had a political podcast, it doesn't mean I won't talk politics. I will. I'll rant all day long. But all that's about is making certain people go, yeah, and everyone else go, you idiot. And
it's a sport now. It's not not a discussion. It's just
exactly. It's just
very weird.
Sad. It's because I grew up in a very political family. Followed politics a lot, and so the state of it now is like, where do you even go with this? Where do you
Hamilton? We're going that route.
There you go. Yeah, we pretty much are. That's true.
I'm ready.
Sadly, yeah, it pretty much are. So anyway, that's what I was talking about. It got hard right away. As soon as I decided, well, I want to put it out, then and there was a whole bunch of steps. And I love sitting here. This is keeps me motivated. Like scheduling people is really good because that means I have something to do. Because in this particular time, I don't have a lot to do, quite honestly. I'm on the flight simulator a lot, but I don't have a lot going on. I try and get out every day and move as much as I can. But this talking to people is really a big part of what keeps me going, keeps me, motivated to do something. And it's great because it is a lot of work, and doing the podcast then makes it makes it easier to do the work, because I have, once I do a podcast, it's like, oh, that was really fun. That was really good. I need to get this out there so people can hear what this person said. And it makes life far more interesting.
So it kind of gives you a sense of fulfillment, it sounds like.
A big time. It does. And I don't know why, because there's nothing that value. I don't know that there's that much value in it, but it gives me a huge sense of fulfillment. And it does feed my ego, because mostly, the people who hear it are people I know. And so they say it's great. So
I understand that.
Yes.
I understand that. Oh, but you're right. A lot of those doing things like this, it's hard work, but at the end it gives you something. But a lot of people can't process that, the long-term result of having finished the podcast episode, and they just think, I don't want to record, I don't want to schedule, I don't want to mix, and they can't keep in mind that fulfillment like what you're getting.
It's true, and it's a big part of doing any activity like this is. We talked about this my last episode, where a lot of people seem to be starting podcasts because they've been told you should start a podcast because you do this, it's becoming kind of a business decision for a lot of people. I don't know where this started, but at some point it's like, you really should do a podcast to promote your business. And podcasting started out as just really a way for people to have fun and talk about things they love. And my podcast is doing that. I like talking to people, meeting new people all the time, meeting someone from Amarillo, Texas, in the middle of the week, just it's such a random thing. And without the podcast, there's, it probably wouldn't have happened. I doubt we would have been on the streets of Texas.
The odds of us getting to have a conversation, for that matter, the odds of us running into each other is minuscule. But let's say we did, there's almost no chance that whatever we're doing out in wherever, we're going to be like, you know what, whatever this was, I'm going to stop and we're just going to talk for an hour and then I'll go back to my day. Like, you're at the grocery store, you're not sitting down.
It's not very likely, especially today through a mask.
Yeah. Well, you're at the airport or whatever, it doesn't matter. Unless you're stuck on a train, which that doesn't happen down here, or a plane or something, and I'm one of those people I don't talk to people on planes. Even pre-COVID, I'd pull out my laptop and I'm working on a book, or I'm listening, or I'm reading a book, or I'm playing a video game. Like, I don't want to talk to the stranger next to me. And yet you can still get something like this conversation. It's really fun. It's interesting, but you've got to build it in nowadays. It doesn't happen organically in public unless you're really going out to do that. And getting somebody almost at, with their pants down, you're like, oh, that person, I'm going to talk to them for a while and they don't even know it.
It's true. And actually, that used to happen to me even before I had a podcast. I would run into people like that, but I'm the same way on a plane. For one, I think that the other person probably doesn't want me to talk to them, because if they're frequent travelers, the last thing they want is somebody to sit down next to them and start going, oh, yeah, what's going on? I'm from Oregon. Yeah, we have a lot of weed up there. And, it's just, it's not like a common thing anymore. A long time ago, I think people used to talk more on planes, and I've had some good conversations occasionally, but there's always the worry of I know this, I bet this is true with you too. You sit down on the plane and you're like, okay, I hope this person doesn't start talking, because what if they start talking about X, Y, or Z? I don't.
Oh yeah, that's it. I'm a chicken. Yeah. I don't want to have that cringe-worthy plane ride. I would much rather stay in my comfort zone, play with my phone, and we all have our stuff now. Heck, 15 years ago we didn't have that kind of material, but nowadays everybody's got their $1,000 smartphone and their headphones, and more baffling that they won't spend $100 on a mic, but whatever.
Yeah, it's true, and it is I've noticed that is a huge luxury on a plane, because when I bought my computer, I got some free headphones, and I don't like headphones much. Like, they drive me nuts, but they're noise canceling headphones. And man, last couple of plane trips I've taken, it was heaven. Even watching a movie on my phone was interesting, because it blocked out most of the noise. I mean, I could still hear the engines, but I could barely hear anyone talking. And
the engines are almost relaxing.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, with your noise canceling phone. Yeah, exactly. It's like white noise. It's just what a difference. Yeah. Totally
it's cool.
True.
It's a different world.
It is a different world. Yeah, completely. And now I'm wondering when, I am one of these rare people that love to fly. And mainly it's because I don't fly that much, like average once a year. So I'm really looking forward to flying again. And I'm just not ready. Not ready to jump on a plane right now.
That's fair. No, I haven't heard one way or another. I assume they're just empty flights now. Like, I don't know if they're really full and people just aren't talking about it, but I feel like this is a good time to jump on a plane because no one else is on it. But maybe there's a bunch of people that are thinking that and the planes are actually still full.
Actually, everything I've heard, I've heard of people who are flying, and I've seen on news reports mostly that they're full.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
see,
for a while.
What I get for not watching the news.
Yeah, well, and that's a good thing. I don't recommend anyone watch the news. I watch it because I'm a crazy person, I guess. But the planes were leaving space for a while, and I think just purely for financial reasons, they aren't anymore. They're filling up the flights like they always did. They're doing everything.
Like the mask will totally help.
Well, apparently it probably will, because if everyone has a mask on, all the evidence is saying, yeah, that'll help a lot. And the news story I saw this morning was the air on the plane is actually cleaner than just about anywhere because they're filtering the air. So,
see, that's surprising. That's what I was worried about. I was like, one person, takes off the mask or, does whatever and they sneeze and now the whole plane is contaminated for 2 hours.
Right. And that was my worry too. But
That's
I
what I
think
was
that's
thinking.
actually not true. If you're sitting near that person, like within 20 feet, then that could be a problem because 20 feet's not, on a plane. That's a lot of the plane. So if someone,
that's a chunk.
That's a chunk of the plane. That's what worries me. Or just that they didn't wipe it down good enough. Somebody that just stood up was infectious, and I'm just sat down, and I don't know. I'm not quite ready, but it's according to the airlines, it's safe.
Yeah, I trust them a lot.
Yeah,
they wouldn't.
It's the airlines, right? Why would they do that?
It's not like they started charging for luggage carry-ons.
Exactly. It's like
for no reason.
I don't know. If there was a really good reason to get on a plane, I guess I would, but I'm not going to jump on there to go to Vegas right now. That's
well, that
not happening.
Everything's still closed everywhere for the most part, anyways.
Yeah.
If I wasn't traveling for work, which I haven't, I'm not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is just for fun, and nowhere's having fun that I want to go visit.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything's shut down.
Pretty much everything's shut down, and the things that aren't shut down they look they look a lot less safe than being on a plane.
Yeah, haven't looked at Vegas, but I know I saw something about the casinos that they had space at least the slot machines, and I assume if that goes to the table games, where's the fun? Gambling's part of the fun, but I'm a craps player, and that's the best part is being elbow to elbow with somebody that's winning money with you.
Being with all the the big crowd. I would think that would be a lot of the fun of it, and they may have closed down again by now. I know they were open for a while. A few of them were trying to open. I'm not sure if they're still open at this point.
Yeah, because, I heard about the opening. I didn't hear if they closed or not.
But, I'm not sure.
Oh, well. Another time. I'm not going either way right now.
Exactly. Another time.
Mm-hmm.
That will be for the future.
So are you working on your pilot's license, or are you just playing flight simulators for fun?
Right now, I'm just playing flight simulators for fun and frustration. I actually have a pilot's license.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I always wanted one my whole life. I started flight simming when it was in its infancy. So when I started playing the flight sim, it was wireframe. I played this combat game on a DOS machine where, you would boot into it by typing in the name of the game, and you had a floppy, and it was literally wireframe, and it was a combat simulator, but I don't care about combat because I think combat can be saved for people in combat. That's not something that I find. I don't care if people play combat games, but it feels weird to me. So you did get to land on an aircraft carrier. The big challenge was to land this F-16 on an aircraft carrier. So it was really dorky looking then, and it's slowly, I don't know if you've seen new flight simulators, but they're absolutely unbelievable. I got my license like over 10 years ago, and then I wasn't, I will never lose my license, but to fly legally, I would have to update it. So I would have to take about 2.5 hours of lessons in flying, and I could be flying again. So I do the flight sim because, it's a little bit cheaper.
Sure.
I can't say it's free, but it's a little bit cheaper, and it's really fun. I also fly helicopters, which is incredibly expensive in the real world.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I could never. Well, I shouldn't say that. I can't afford helicopters right now. I would love to get my helicopter add-on one day. So yeah, the new sims are really, compared to what I was flying, they're freaking phenomenal. If you're really curious, you can go on my YouTube page. I have a bunch of flight simulator videos.
I'll probably go check it out.
Yeah, go check it out. Look at the latest couple, because the scenery is getting more and more like the real world. And then there's this new one coming out from Bill Gates' old company.
Yep. Is it the full Earth one where it's like a fully functional map of the Earth?
Well, it's been that way a long time. Microsoft Flight Simulator, way back in 98 or something, when I first discovered it, you could go anywhere in the world. Without buying more scenery to make it look better, it doesn't look, it looks pretty silly, or did. Now it looks it looks pretty okay. And then X-Plane is the Apple version, but you can play it on PC now. It used to be only Apple. But so there are two simulators that are absolutely very fun, very playable. But there's a new one. The Microsoft dropped its. Everyone's going to be so bored by this point. Microsoft dropped
They're
its.
asleep. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. They're fast asleep. They don't know what I'm saying.
This is some weird dreams they're having now.
So Microsoft had the number one simulator with Microsoft Flight Simulator X. So that was 2010, I think. And 10 years ago, they completely dropped the franchise. They actually sold it to a couple other places. And so I still fly that simulator, but it was being put out by a different company.
Okay.
So it's kind of complicated.
That does sound complicated.
It's ridiculous. So they... to everyone's surprise, they announced about 6 months ago that they're coming out with a new version. And it's extremely exciting because the videos of the new version show that they're doing the flight physics correct this time, where they didn't, before they did it with a computer and they had 4 points. So you have a plane and it had a point on this wing and it had a point in the back and the front. And those were the points that the computer was using to figure out what happens when you fly. Well, every time you move in space and you're in the air, your airplane changes. What it's doing changes, and how it's flying changes, like second by second by second by second. So their new flight physics has 1,000 points on the plane. And
that's a lot more than 4.
That's a lot more than 4, and it's constantly... it's constantly computing the physics, so it should be a lot more real. And it looks like a picture of the Earth. Like they say, you can find your house flying in it. So it's
That's really
pretty
cool. I think I heard something about that because I saw some engine talking about, or them talking about an engine that had just this massive high quality image where you could just fly around anywhere on the Earth and it should look really similar, something like that.
I can't remember where they're getting the imagery from. They're actually getting it from some kind of mapping company. It's over 2 terabytes of information.
Wow.
So the way they make that possible for you to fly on your computer is you don't download it all at once. You just are downloading the area where you are.
Yeah, so they'll block off like 100 miles by 100 miles or something.
Exactly. So you're still looking at about 150 gigabytes minimum just for the basic simulator, which is a pretty big game. You're a gamer, so you know that's a pretty big game. And then you can either, if you're flying online, it's basically going to download it. Like if you have an internet like I do, it's going to download as you go. So it's going to try
streaming style.
Yeah, it's like it's going to stream as you go and hopefully keep up with you. You know, we'll see. Keeping our fingers crossed, but all the pictures and videos of it are just mind-boggling. And that's like just the beginning of it. They're doing real traffic. They're doing real sounds. All kinds of crazy stuff.
That's cool.
So, yeah,
you
pretty
guys
exciting.
With your airplanes, by the way, I still have beef about this now that I learned about it. Y'all don't fly in a straight line. It's not like, Eugene, Amarillo, you just take the shortest flight. There's circles. You got to find those like circles to get places. That's
in commercial aircraft.
Yeah.
See, now that's the interesting thing. If you're in a private aircraft, you are going a much straighter line. If you go in a straight line, you're probably going to hit a mountain. Because, if you go from here to Amarillo, there are some 13,000 foot mountains. So you got to be in a very expensive aircraft to just fly right over those. But you are more... Hey, that's interesting thing you touched on. They fly in circles in the big jets because they're going to 40,000 feet and the air is better in certain spots. Like the air is, you're going to get better air when you fly in this weird pattern, and you're trying to stay away from the other aircraft, which I find very, I think that's a really good idea.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that. Also, I think you're doing something with the curvature, right? On those commercial jets,
when you're on a long flight, exactly. They're basically shortening the curvature of the Earth by using
you can't
routes
actually fall in a straight line. On a curve. So
and I don't even understand those flights because I look at the flight pattern from whenever I can go to Hawaii. So we're flying from San Francisco or Portland to Hawaii. And I look at their flight path, and it's a great big arc.
Yeah, it goes almost up to, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going, well, go straight across the ocean. Why are you going in the arc? And I don't actually exactly have the answer. It's something to do with winds and the curvature of the Earth. And because they're way up there, they're at usually 35,000 feet is where the
cruising altitude.
Where the little commercial planes fly. The big commercial planes, which I've never flown on, like 747s and 380s and, the ones that hold 300 people, they fly at 41. And private planes fly, the private jets that the Richie Riches, like the Joe Rogans fly, they fly at 45,000 feet. So they're out of the way of commercial. Basically, they're like...
They're just skipping across. It's a fast car in the air.
Yep, it's a fast car in the air. And we don't want to run into you little people,
Yeah. You're in our space with your roads.
Exactly. And they do have roads in the sky, which is a weird thing. When they're flying,
It's all weird. The more I learned about it, I was just like, I don't get it. All my concepts were just off. And so that was the biggest one though for me, was the big circles that the flight paths take. It blew my mind because I was like, you don't fly in straight lines? That's upsetting to me.
It's really mind-boggling.
It really messed with me.
It's all about using less fuel, actually. It's all about conservation because, not because they care about how much fuel they're using from a, Earth standpoint. It's all about money. They want to spend the least amount of money possible. Like every time GE comes out with a new jet engine and they talk about how it's 30% cheap, it uses 30% less fuel. I'm like, well, yeah, because they want to make more money. It's really not because you want to make an engine with 30% less fuel.
They just need to sell it so they can get that bottom line better.
Yeah, they want a better bottom line. That's what it's about.
If only it translated to us, in cheaper flight tickets. That'd be cool.
Be nice. No, the airline industry has been screwed up for a while. Yeah. That's another political issue, to be honest. It's all about big money and politics. That's how that got so screwed up. And again, the bottom line, because the top people make a lot of money, and most of the people in the industry don't make a lot of money, especially when you're talking about the people working in the plane. They used to get paid really well. It used to be one of the best jobs out there, and now they get paid okay, but not like things used to be.
Pilots are making okay money, and then it just goes downhill from there.
And then the beginning pilots, they don't make a lot of money. It's shocking. It came out, I think it was about 10 years ago now, when there was an aircraft wrecked, and it basically was the pilot's fault. And then they started digging into what that pilot, that it was a beginning pilot. He wasn't getting paid much, and he just wasn't trained that well on the aircraft he was flying. And so he was, it is terrifying. He was exhausted, didn't know the aircraft that well. So when something kind of minor went wrong, it ended up crashing and killing people.
That is so scary. And the way you can just die because of small mistakes like that.
And on the other hand, the I hate to talk about aircraft accidents because no one understands. The accident rate with aircraft now in the last at least 10 years, it is literally so low that they can't get statistics.
Well, yeah, it's safer than driving for sure. Unless you're in, what is it, Korea or...
It's true,
Thailand
maybe
or
Russia, and maybe there are some where they're still using 50-year-old aircraft, and they don't have regulations. But in the modern world, America, Europe, most of Asia, they literally don't have enough crashes to get statistics about airline accidents. That's how low it is. So people see one plane crash and it kills X amount of people, and they think, wow, that's terrible. I'm never going to fly. But that's out of, 1 million miles flown that day. One aircraft.
Commercial never happens.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I'm talking about, commercial.
Yeah,
commercial.
It's so rare.
The accident rate in private is not so good. But it's it's still tied. One of my favorite, I went to safety lectures back when I was learning to fly.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the favorite things that I heard, the instructor was asking all these different pilots if they've been in a certain kind of wreck or if this has happened to them, if this happened to them. And it was great because my instructor or the flight school, the owner of the flight school, everything he asked, she was like, yeah, I did. Yeah, that happened to me. Oh, yep, did that.
You're like, why am I here?
Like that? Well, it was cool because I was like, well, she survived them all.
Yeah.
And most of those things were minor. But the point he was trying to make is your aircraft is rarely going to break. If you have a crash, it's you. You did something wrong. And that's pretty much what all the statistics prove out with small, not commercial, but with small aircraft, is that it's most of the time pilots being really overconfident. They've flown too many flight simulator hours, and they're like, "Oh, I can do this, no problem."
Well, and at least if you're flying and you make a mistake, it's you killing you. It's not somebody else that made a mistake on the road.
It's true.
That's what's scary about driving. You're driving along, you're like, I'm doing everything right, and then somebody does something wrong, and
that is what's
the price.
Yeah, that is what's scary about driving, and or those truck tires that explode and come. Oh,
that's scary too. They're just going along and they blow up and they wreck your car.
I've had him come right. I've had him hit my car.
Really?
Well, I lived in LA for 11 years, so almost anything that can happen on a freeway, it's gonna happen. You're gonna see.
At least you aren't going too fast on the freeway there.
That day I was, but most of the time, I mean, it's just bizarre. Different way of life. I've never seen a car fire before or since on the side of the freeway, but I would see them at least once a year. See a car sitting on the freeway burning.
Really?
And it just like, what the heck happened?
I've only seen a car on fire once, and I was living in a questionable place when I first started, and it was behind a strip club at one of those apartments that are real cheap.
Oh,
and
yeah.
One of the girls, I guess, got mad at some guy and lit his car on fire. So I got up that next morning, and there was a car in our alley that was on fire, and they were still there fighting. And I don't even know how you light a car on fire. I should have asked her, but she was really mad.
It's probably easy. It's got a bunch of gas in it.
Oh, that's true. I guess if you just
especially if you smoke, I would think
you're
it's
at a bar,
easy.
grab a bottle of Everclear and light it up in the car.
Poof.
That's probably what happened.
There's been 100 different ways to light a car on fire in TV and film. So,
that's good.
If you
I'm going to go start taking notes
TV.
Just in case I ever got to do that.
Exactly. Well, I've probably kept you on long enough. We've been talking a while. This is great.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. Thanks for coming on. And, good luck with your book and your podcast. And I will do a wrap up now.
Sounds great.
You've been listening to Were You Still Talking? This is Joel Albrecht, and I have had Andrew Monroe on my podcast. Check out his website. Check out Axe and Bow Marketing. Check out his book, The Leaf and a Pebble. And really great having you on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much again for having me. It's been a blast.
All right. Thanks a lot. And as I always say, be good to each other.
That's good advice.